This is IGN. Let's try that again. This is your IGN review of Forestrike by Mitchell Saltzman. As a fighting game fan, I've grown to enjoy the process. Spending extended amounts of time in training mode learning the timing of memorized button presses in the hopes that, when it really counts, that practice will pay off. This might be why I found Forestrike, a 2D martial arts-inspired roguelike that lets you plan out your approach to solving a gauntlet of combat encounters before executing upon them for real, so uniquely appealing. It successfully evokes the feeling of classic kung fu fight choreography by mixing straight-up hand-to-hand combat with clever moments of using the environment to your advantage, or turning an enemy's own weapon against them, or causing friendly fires simply with an effortless step to the side, all on a 2D plane with minimalist sprite art. The precision and memorization needed to accomplish these impressive-looking feats can be brutal, especially considering how easy it is for one mistake to cascade into many more, eventually cratering a run. But this clever concept still manages to pack a heck of a punch. Forestrike puts you in control of you, a young martial artist who is part of the Order of the Foresight, a faction dutifully devoted to serving their emperor, and one that becomes dedicated to the mission of saving said emperor from the manipulation of a being known as the Admiral. There's a surprising amount of dialogue in Forestrike as we learn more about the Order and the various masters that guide you along his journey in between each run. In that way, it's a lot like the intermissions between runs of Hades, but instead of always looking forward to the new things characters had to say, I generally found myself eager to get on with it so I could get back to fighting. A complete lack of voice acting certainly contributed to this, but the writing and characters themselves also just weren't strong enough to keep my interest for very long. Once you're in an actual run, Forestrike flexes its muscles. It's structured like a gauntlet of combat encounters against increasingly difficult foes, but before the actual fighting starts, you're able to use your foresight technique to essentially do a practice run. That lets you find the right combination of attacks, dodges, and techniques to defeat all of the enemies in the most efficient way possible. Defensive resources like blocks and dodges are extremely limited, and it's rare that you'll go into an encounter with more than one of either. At first, it felt rather frustrating as I just continuously found myself being forced to burn my dodge or block against the first tough enemy, which meant I wouldn't be able to avoid the attacks of the last one. Eventually, though, a visual language started to develop as I learned how enemies would react to my actions and how I could use those predictable tendencies to my advantage. What really makes the gameplay sing are the different martial masters that you take along with you in each run, which dictate what techniques you're able to use. There's Talgun, who is the master of the Leaf style, which focuses primarily on redirecting enemy attacks so that your foes take each other out. Nodai of the Cold Eye style, which focuses primarily on blocking, restoring health, and brute force. And my favorite, Monkey, who utilizes a wild fighting style that relies on surprising foes with drop kicks, bananas, and resting on the floor so that enemy attacks go right over and slam into the foe behind you. Each style requires a completely different approach to solving the puzzles of combat, and I loved jumping between them and seeing the many different techniques that unlock the further you get in a run. Each time you beat the boss of one of the 4 regions, you unlock more techniques that get added to the pool of randomly selected rewards, which essentially acts as the permanent progression that helps give you the extra edge you'll need to conquer each of the 4 regions of the campaign. Forestrike is an exceedingly clever roguelite that combines combat and puzzle solving with a clear reverence for martial arts. The various masters that you can choose from at the beginning of each run do a great job of making each run feel fresh, and it absolutely nails that all-important feeling of progression both by subtly teaching you its visual language and increasing your power with better techniques the deeper you get. A weak story slows its momentum, and the level of precision required in the later stages can lead to some frustrating ends to otherwise promising runs, but the failures mostly serve to make the eventual triumph all the sweeter. Forestrike's IGN score? 8 out of 10. Thanks for listening to IGN. My name is Tony Jackson, and for the latest Forestrike updates, visit us at IGN.com.
Spoken Layer.